Hi. I'm Mark, and I think we should know each other. And in the next few minutes, I'd like to tell you why. I recently ran across the work of a guy named Robin Dunbar. He's an anthropologist who's become quite well known for Dunbars Number, which basically is the average size of a human social circle. Any guesses as to what that number might be? Oh, you've also got the notes in front of you. Yes. That number is about 150. And that number, funnily enough, is actually connected to the size of our neocortex. So our brain is actually only able to process about 150 meaningful reciprocal relationships at any given time. Within that, there's sort of layers. At the center, you've got a core of maybe 5 people, friends, family, that they know all your secrets. You would take a bullet for them, they would take a bullet for you. That's right at the middle. Outside of that, you've got maybe another 10 people that you would lend them $1,000 if they asked. You see them every week. You sort of know what's going on with them. And as you get farther and farther out towards that 150, there's people, you'd give them a ride to the airport. You'd call them up to go to a movie. And at the outer edge of that 150, there's a constant ebb and flow. People coming in as you get new friendships and people dropping away as perhaps they move or fade out. And Dunbar is quick to mention that we can know more people than that the outer threshold of people we can know, associate a name to the face, is about 1,500, but those people include Brad Pitt, or a CBC News anchor, or Mayor Nenshi, or that person you see at the bus stop all the time, or the barista at your coffee shop. So you can associate a name to that face, but that's about where it ends. There's no meaningful two-way dialogue or relationship there. And to put that in perspective, if you look at this room, this is about the outer threshold of how many friendships we can have. So really, take a look around. Imagine having a meaningful two-way relationship with every single person in this room. When you look at their face, you don't just know their name, you know something about them. You know what they did this week. You know something about their families. You know if they just had surgery, and you would go for a beer with them, and you would go to a movie with them. Looking around, that might be a little overwhelming, hey? Everyone in this room is a friend of yours. But it's not impossible, it's doable. If you thought that we were a small town, and in fact, up until recently, town sizes were often around 150, not coincidentally. If we were a town and we saw each other every day, yeah, I would probably know where you go for the groceries. I would know what your favorite coffee is, that sort of thing. And if you imagine that I'm at the center of a bubble, and that bubble is made up of 150 people. In this room, you would be those people. And if we are an isolated village, each of you is at the center of your own bubble as well, of 150 people. But they're all the same people. All of our bubbles are identical. We are just one happy TEDx town in this room. And that's not real, though. It's cozy, it's nice, we all know each other, you know me, I know you, we're a happy family, it's lovely. But the reality is that we are right in the middle of a city of 1.1 million people. We're in the middle of a country of 35 million people. As was pointed out, we're in a world of 7 billion people. And I would propose that it's not good enough for us to be limited by that micro circle of 150 people, by even that macro circle of 1,500 people, that it's not okay to stop there. Our worldview is formed very much from the viewpoints of the people around us that we know. In a lot of ways, I'm right now seeing the world through the eyes of 150 people that are in my circle. When I was a kid, a little kid, I one night stayed up until midnight. And it was really quiet in the house, and it was quiet in the backyard and quiet on the street. And I was pretty convinced that I was the only person in the whole city that was still awake. Because my parents were asleep, my sister was asleep, my neighbors were asleep, I was pretty sure that all my classmates were asleep. So I was the only one hardcore enough to be awake at midnight. Now at the time I didn't know what nightclubs were, and I didn't know about red-eye flights, I didn't know about overnight shifts, and when I shortly thereafter learned about these things, I was dismayed to discover that I actually wasn't that hardcore, and that there's all sorts of people staying up at midnight all the time. Now if we go back to our little TEDx town here, all of us, to lesser or greater degrees, have decided that this is a pretty decent way to spend an afternoon. But it's pretty easy to imagine just down the street another bubble of 150 people who think this is a really stupid way to spend an afternoon. And if you were to zoom out to a city scale, it's pretty easy to imagine bubbles everywhere, scattered across Calgary. You've got a bubble of suburbanites, urbanites. You've got a bubble of politicians, artists, welders. You've got bubbles of homeless people, of jailed criminals, of the wealthy, of new immigrants. And if you look at that map of just little circles all over the city, it's pretty easy to start imagining those bubbles as rival tribes. If you're in this TEDx town bubble, it'd be pretty easy to look down the street and find that other bubble unfamiliar. To look at those people, and they actually don't look like people in the way you've come to define them. They're a bit threatening. You can be suspicious of them, and it's pretty easy to start tumbling into hurling names at them, or stealing from them, or hurting them. And I'm painting a pretty bleak picture here. Luckily, that's not how it is. As I mentioned, we are not an isolated town right here. And while I'm at the center of my circle and you're at the center of your bubble, those bubbles are not identical. They overlap, but there's people in your bubble that aren't in mine, and people in their bubble that aren't in yours, and that's cool. Because that starts to be what we call networks, communities. And there's a lot of advantages for those things, as we all know. I work in theater, as I think was mentioned, and through that I interact with a lot of nonprofits, both in the arts and outside of it. And there's a terrifying moment in the life of any new nonprofit where you've got it together, you've got your event built, you've got this new initiative that's really cool, you've put the tireless hours into it, and then you have to tell people about it. And you don't know how to do that. You don't know how to get it in the newspaper. You don't know how to write a media release. You don't know what to put in it, how to format it, who to send it to, when to send it to them. And nobody in your organization knows either. And so you call up somebody's second cousin once removed who was in the paper one time to figure out how did you do that. And meanwhile, there's hundreds of PR professionals scattered across the city who can write a media release in their sleep, who have lists of contacts numbering in the hundreds, who'd be happy to share that expertise through some kind of workshop or providing you with templates, if only they were asked. So that's where that second cousin comes in. They know somebody at a PR firm who happens to have an intern who's looking to cut their teeth on real-world experience, and suddenly you've got a volunteer with the expertise you needed, providing you with a skill set that you didn't have. And skill sharing is one great perk, but you might also meet somebody who lives in that part of town that you always thought was sketchy, that was dangerous. But the way they talk about it, they love their neighborhood, and they seem pretty normal. So the next time you're driving past that part of town, you swing in. You get out of your car, you go for a walk, and you find this amazing coffee shop that you never knew existed. And yeah, the neighborhood's different from yours and unfamiliar, but maybe not in a bad way. I hold parties called We Should Know Each Other. I've been holding them since 2008. And basically, I invite people to my living room, and I tell them to get to know each other. That's it. There's no theme beyond We Should Know Each Other. There's no moderation. There's no entertainment. I do provide a bowl of chips. I make sure that my fridge is stocked with juice and booze. I put out some name tags. You don't have to go through that awkward moment of forgetting someone's name. And then I just sort of sit there and wait to see who shows up. And that's the magic part of it, to see who shows up. Because there's no anything happening. The evening is entirely determined by who's in that room. And it's worked out pretty well. We've had evenings where you have Occupy activists in the same room with oil and gas workers. You've got politicians from competing parties that are chatting amicably in the corner. I had this amazing conversation once in my kitchen with a police officer from the Violent Crimes Unit that totally changed my perspective of the police force. When I started hosting these things, I didn't have any of these philosophies behind me. I just had a vague sense that we didn't know each other and that maybe we should. And I didn't realize that, that these events were my way of actually expressing a worldview that we should know each other. Now, I'm not trying with these parties to defy biology, to somehow expand the neocortex to allow you to have more than 150 friends, have more than 1,500 people that you know. What I am trying to do, whether or not you make a friend, and you may, that'd be great, but at least have your bubble rub up against someone else's in ways that are unexpected and surprising, in ways that expand both your worldview and theirs. In my living room over chips. In my perfect world, we would not be looking at a bubble here and a bubble down the street. We'd be looking at a closely interwoven network of bubbles. If you zoomed out on that, it might look like bubble wrap. It would actually be closer than bubble wrap. It would be interwoven to a point that if you looked at this surface, it might look like the surface of a lake during a rainstorm where there's ripples going everywhere. And ideally, you might have over here a 19-year-old computer programmer in Beijing. And over here, you'd have a 60-year-old esthetician in Boston. And they don't know each other. But she knows somebody here, who knows somebody here, who knows somebody here, who knows that guy. That's what I would be like to be seeing. And if we extended that image, zoomed out even further, I would like to see that lake turning into a giant bubble of its own, where every micro bubble, every macro bubble is composed into some kind of super bubble that encompasses all of us. The problem there is that much as the idea of this TEDx town is a fallacy, that's not a reality either. If we look at that super bubble, there are huge gaps, swaths of emptiness, where over here we do have the rich, over here we do have the poor, over here we have a race and religion, and over here we have another one. And when we look at those bubbles, we don't have to imagine them as warring tribes because they are at war. You don't have to imagine what would happen if they started not seeing each other as people, if they started hurting each other, killing each other, because that's exactly what's happening. And I'm not saying that we should know each other can bridge the gap between rich and poor. I'm not saying that it can make Republicans and Democrats treat each other civilly. I'm not saying that it can solve the problems in Syria, in Israel and Palestine. But what if I am saying that? What if we're able in some way to sit down the people that are at odds, give them a bowl of chips, slap a name tag on them, and if they're able to talk about not the circumstances that they're fighting over, but their kids, or how they were bullied as teenagers, or that river down the street from their house that they walk past when they're stressed, it's a lot harder to scream names at somebody or to shoot them if they have recited their favorite poem to you and then they've listened to you recite yours to them. So yeah, I think if we're only able to have 150 friends and only able to process 1,500 people in our networks, fine. Let's make sure the outer edges of those bubbles are churning. Let's make sure there's constantly people coming in and out, challenging our worldview, making us think about things, making them think about things. Let's make sure that the surface of that lake is just foaming with activity. That way, I think we can start seeing our member of parliament as more than just a cog in a failing democratic experiment. We can see the homeless person down the street as more than a drain on our social services, a drain on our hard-earned tax dollars. We can see that these mega corporations within them have really intelligent, really thoughtful people that are just trying to do the right thing. We can try to tolerate that intolerable neighbor down the hall. So yeah, I think we should know each other. I think we should try to have that worldview as we're walking down the street every day. And I think that would make us better as cities, as a world. Anyway, I'm Mark. Hi. I throw parties in my living room, and you are invited.